F1 Battle of the Year. The question we have, Brandon, was the Hamilton-Checo Perez Turkey Grand Prix battle better than the Hamilton-Alonso Hungary battle? So was the battle that Hamilton was involved in the Turkish Grand Prix a better battle than the one that he was involved in the Grand Prix in Hungary?
Well, just first off, I'll start this off with a big comment that, Lewis Hamilton is the king of F1, considering he's in both of these conversations of the battle of the year right now in F1. The first is here. We're talking about the battle that he had with Checo Perez, Sergio Perez of Red Bull at the Turkey GP this past weekend. And it was beautiful to watch. I said, the race was kind of a little boring, but the battle with Hamilton and Perez was the true race to watch. Boy, was it amazing. They battled like wheel to wheel for about 6 corners, and it was just absolutely fun to watch. I'm telling you, that was the real race to watch. In the end, Max Verstappen came up and thanked Sergio Perez for basically holding Lewis Hamilton back. Lewis Hamilton only finished P5. Max Verstappen finished P2. So strategically, it was huge for Red Bull that Checo did his job and battled the king of F1 and held him back. But, man, at one point I was like, oh, man, Lewis is definitely going by him here. But then back on the straight there, they went even, and it was Red Bull power versus Mercedes power, and it stayed even. And down into turn 1 in a slick, wet track, Sergio Perez, shoved it down inside there, and all clean, all fair play. Some beautiful racing from 2 of the better experienced drivers in Formula One with Sergio Perez and Lewis Hamilton. It was a real joy to watch. And like I said, I think that was the real treat of the Turkish Grand Prix. But I've still got to say the battle of the year is not that, man. It's got to go back to that Hungarian Grand Prix when Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso battled it out for, it seemed, about 5 or 6 laps. So that's the difference in there. This battle with Checo was for about 5 or 6 corners, maybe 7, maybe half a lap, arguably. This battle with Fernando Alonso at the Hungarian Grand Prix lasted for 5 or 6 laps, and it ended up being strategically bigger for Alpine, with Fernando Alonso holding Lewis Hamilton back so Esteban Ocon could get his first win in Formula One. So I've really got to think that was the true battle of the year, Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso at the Hungarian Grand Prix. But second, and a close second, is this battle between Lewis Hamilton and Sergio Perez at the Turkish Grand Prix. But like I said, there's one main cog in there in both of those stories. That's Lewis Hamilton, the king of F1.
Yeah, that's probably a good call. I'm going to cheat here a little bit. The one with Alonso was probably the better battle, but I think the one with Perez was the more important battle. You mentioned that the race was a little kind of slow, kind of sluggish. It's raining out. It was a little bit of a boring race. Bottas drove awesome. And then Verstappen coming in second. That was kind of like, 1-2 right there. But the fact that battle was between Hamilton and the other Red Bull driver, I think, was very important. We should also say that Hamilton took the engine penalty to start this race as well. And now for him to climb up, he had to try to get by Perez, and that was huge to be held off by Perez to help Verstappen. And you got to also look at the F1 standings right now, between Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton and say, this was probably more important because of those standings, and now Verstappen is back on top. So, like I said, I think this one was the more important one for the fact that it made the race a little bit more exciting when the race was mostly boring. And then number 2, the huge effect it had on the standings between those 2 drivers who are battling it out for the top 2 spots, battling it out for the top spot here late down the stretch. And then to just have, a Red Bull driver holding Hamilton off, that just adds to the drama. If it was a driver from a different team, then it probably is a little bit different. But because it's a Red Bull driver, I think that adds to it as well. So it was awesome to see. And it's just funner to see around the corners too. I know that sounds kind of weird, but like seeing the battles in the corners, because there's so much at stake. That's where drivers sometimes lose it a little bit. And, especially in the rain, you think that's sometimes where drivers spin out and things like that. So to see it there, I mean, that was kind of a funner battle for me to see.
Yeah, that last cam that he's showing right now with the battle going down into turn one, amazing. Look at the speed that Sergio Perez is carrying into turn one and the commitment under the conditions of rain there to pull that off. And then the trust between him and Lewis Hamilton to, you know, be going side by side like that down into turn one is huge. You can only have trust like that with experienced drivers that know what each other is going to do. And these are two of the most experienced drivers in Formula One right now. And they put on an absolute show there at the Turkish Grand Prix. Like I said, I've still got to go with that Alonso and Hamilton battle as the #1 battle right now. But this is a close second. But like you said, this was huge for the championship battle now with Max Verstappen with a 6-point championship lead going into the United States Grand Prix. But I've also got to say this. We talked about how the best drivers in Formula One are amazing in the rain. Lewis Hamilton starting P11 after the engine penalty, fighting his way back to a P5 finish in the rain under those conditions, passing multiple drivers, getting it done with an absolute masterclass drive. And then got to give cheers to Valtteri Bottas getting the win under those same conditions and having himself a great drive from start to finish. At no point was he under pressure from Max Verstappen. So he did a great job of just going out and getting that win for himself and for Mercedes. But hey, like we said, battle of the year here, and it was a great one between Checo Perez and Lewis Hamilton. But let's move on to topic number 8 tonight.